So Tirana is where I first started. I started in the Tirana second branch, um, and Tirana is kind of, I guess, America's New York. If you think about it, if you think about big city in America, you think of New York. The big city in Tirana or in Albania is Tirana. And it's still nothing big city compared to ours, but it's definitely the most industrial. I saw there's factories all over the place. There are skyscrapers and nice buildings in there. There's a lot of nice apartments. So living in Tirana was definitely nice because I mean, if you needed a store, there were 50 right under you. That you can get whatever you wanted because they all had similar things. They all have something different, and you can get whatever you want right under you in the apartment complexes. I remember the first time I had an exchange, I went to a different city that was kind of more country style, and I remember just feeling weird and talking to this missionary, and I was like, "What is it?" Because I was just felt weird, and I realized it was because when I looked straight, I could see sky. Like I was like, "There's blue sky above me." I could see it, whereas in Albania or in Tirana, you look forward and you see tall buildings. And Albania was pretty funny because their power lines, they don't really, if a power line goes out, they don't really take it down. They just put a new one over it. So there's, wherever you are in the street, there's power lines going all over, and especially in Toronto because there's so many buildings and places that need power. It just winds back and forth. But especially in the second branch of Tirana was kind of the nicer part of Tirana. It was the central part of Tirana, I guess I could say. So it was all the upscale, the upper scale, I guess, apartments, stores, facilities, roads. Everything was really nice. So from there, I spent 6 months, and then I went to Fier, which was about an hour and a half down. Just straight south almost. That was interesting because going from Tirana to there was about once you got out of Tirana, it's about mostly farmland. You go through a city here and then mostly farmland, and then you see a village somewhere off the corner and then mostly farmland, and then I got to Fier. When I think about it, it was a mini Tirana. In the center of Tirana or of Fier, it had one tall building and then a big bank, and then just a couple really nice stores. But then you'd walk, in Toronto, you'd walk 20 minutes to have to get to the outer skirts, whereas this one you walk about 5 or 6 minutes, and then you're in the outskirts, and you're seeing smaller and smaller houses and more land instead of buildings. Really, really nice place. I think that city was the hardest one for me to get down because all the back roads and stuff, I don't know. It just took me a long time to get around. So transportation, interesting. So they have these little vans they call them furgons. So they don't. I think I rode on a bus like twice in Albania because if they have buses, it's not going from city to city. It's going around the town to get people around if they need it. Like more in Tirana is where they were. I think in Fier they had one bus because it went to the village and back. But if you want to go from city to city, they don't have subways or train. I guess they did have a train, but they are very slow. And I think they were pretty. They like went in the morning and night. Like that was it. So Furgon, it's just a van. It's the big like 12-passenger van that they would like take the back seat out. So if people had luggage, they would just shove stuff in there. And so I guess they could fit 9 people in there, but they'd squeeze about 20. They'd squeeze about 20 people, and I just remember like perfect stranger, and you're just right next to each other, and it wasn't weird to them. That's just what happened. So the first time I did it, I felt a little awkward and weird, and then I realized they felt perfectly normal. So I was like, okay, I can relax. So that's what they do. You'd pay them, depending on what city, you'd pay them 50 cents to like $2 to go for every 30 minutes or 4 hours, whatever you needed to do. That was their main transportation from city to city if you needed to get around, because a lot of them didn't really own cars of their own. If you had a furgon, that was it wasn't just like a side job, that was your life. They would sit on the corner and wait for people to come, and then they'd go there and bring people back, and that's what they did all day. Just drive from city to city, bringing people. So cost of living is definitely way cheaper there. They use something called lek. So we have like pennies, nickels, dimes, stuff like that. They just have lek, where 1 lek is equal to 1 cent, about. So we say like 500 pennies would be $5. They just say it's 500 lek. So, and they'd have like 50 lek coins to a 500 lek paper bill. I think they went to paper after 200 lek, and then 500 lek, 1000 lek, 50 or 20, and then 50. So it was much cheaper to live there. Rent was way cheaper. I think we didn't really have to worry about rent. The mission office took care of it, but I know we were in nicer apartments wherever the missionaries lived, and I think we only paid like 200 to 250 a month, and those were nice apartments. We actually ate out most of our mission because a normal family of 4 would live off of 200 to 300 lek like $200 to $300 per month, and that was for all the food, utilities, rent, and school. Whereas Albania and missionaries, we would get like $230 per missionary, and we didn't have to worry about rent or utilities. So we just literally, that was for food and supplies. So we actually found it was cheaper to eat out almost every meal instead of buying our food, and it was good because you could get something called a souflace. Other places in Europe call them a gyro. It's like a pita with some like plain yogurt on it with a bunch of vegetables and then meat that they would just slice off this big spit. They just slice it off right onto it and fold it up and hand it to you. And amazing. So those were like $1.50. So we could get 2 of those for $3 per missionary, and that's a big meal, and just keep going. So that's about what we ate for every lunch. So Fier was a bigger city in a smaller town is kind of what it was. They don't have, especially Fier, I think that had one of the few cities that I stayed in that had like a chain supermarket. They called it Chatauya. It was a QTU is what they say. But they only had those in mainly in their big cities. So they had one in Tirana, but it was way on the far outskirts. Fier was on the outskirts, but the outskirts weren't that far away, so I could still go to it. And that was probably the nicest place I'd shopped at in Albania, because that was the chain. Most stores, like I said before, they're just stores at the bottom of a apartment complex. They'll just have like rooms, and they're small, about the size of this room, and they would stuff them full of so much food, and they'd have anything: food, soap, string, paper, whatever, drinks, whatever you wanted. And they would stuff it full so you could just run down from your apartment, like right around the corner, get it. And interestingly enough, across the street, they'd have the same store almost, owned by someone else. But people wouldn't go to this one because that was across the street, and they just go to that one. So they didn't have chains, but people would own their own stores, but they had about the same stuff and maybe a couple things different, but mostly just stuffed, crammed full of everything you'd think of. So people didn't need to go to this big QTU because they could probably find it cheaper for right underneath them. So that was kind of how shopping went. So then from Fier, I went to Elbasan. I had an awesome companion there, a couple companions, and then I trained there. Training was fun because I didn't have anyone to lean on. I was the leaning block, I guess. So I really had to learn the city a lot more myself because, like I said, it was hard to in Fier, it was hard to get to know where I was. Elbasan, that was the most country place I'd been in. There weren't big stores. There weren't big like skyscrapers. It was one or maybe 2-story houses all the way around. All you could see, just long roads with houses on them, and I think I had a lot of fun in that city because I was training. Because I learned the city really well because you didn't go to one apartment complex and have to track the whole thing. You just tracked door to door and go down the street, and so we'd end up walking 5 miles out without knowing it and have to walk 5 miles back. But that was really fun in Elbasan. Interesting about Elbasan, in the middle of their city, it's this big outer castle wall, So it was an old castle from way back, like 1300s or something. And they'd actually, I don't know if they knocked it down or people during communism did, but the interior of the castle was basically gutted out. So you'd go into this castle, had this big, beautiful artwork. You'd walk in, and then you'd see the same houses that you saw outside, just lining inside the castle. It was actually this beautiful castle wall, and then there's just normal houses. It was just super funny contrast. And in Albania, what you do for fun at night is to, and I saw this most in Elbasan because it was a smaller city. You'd go to the main square and you just walk. They would actually block these big roads off, this big section of the road, and then they'd walk up and down it with their friends. They didn't buy very much. They didn't go to stores or movies. They would just walk up and down and talk to family and friends, and because you'd probably see everyone in the city there. So I really saw that most in Elbasan because I think that was the biggest, most extravagant road. It was right outside the big castle wall, and it was just super long. I mean, I'm talking 20 yards like wide and like a couple thousand yards long. It was just, people would just walk up and down it. And it was, so that was Elbasan. That was life in Elbasan. We'd track during the day, up and down these roads, and then at night you'd go and try and street contact on this road because everybody in the city is there. If you try and go tracking at night, if they're there, if they're home, it's probably because they're sick and they don't want to talk to you. If there's any type of health, they are on that street, walking up and down, having a blast. They would just love it. And it didn't make sense to me because I'm like, you're walking down the same road. But everyone I saw, they were smiling and enjoying their time. So that was Elbasan. That was life in Elbasan. So from there, I went back to Tirana, a different branch, but same feel. It was right next to the nicer upper scale one. So we saw a little bit of more communistic, only cement, concrete apartment buildings, but it was still stores right underneath you. And you could, if you wanted to go to a nicer place, it was on the outskirts of town, or like nicer place. Nicer like a QT, a nicer Walmart, I guess. You had to go out, so we didn't really do that. But you could still track these big buildings up and down, and it was fun. Just the contrast of big Tirana to little Elbasan and stuff like that was really fun. So from there I went to a city on the beach down in the south called Vlor. Super beautiful city because it was a nicer place because that's the city where you go to when you bring tourists in. When it's a beautiful city, they have they have a couple castles, I guess 20, 30 minutes around them. But that's the place you stay if you want to go see those. You see those, you come back, and then you stay in nice hotels. And they had really nice hotels there, actually. I don't know, I said it was a port city. They were right on the beach. Every Saturday, the whole 6 weeks I was there, the last 6 weeks I was there, we'd actually get members, and they would bring their friends. So we could bring our investigators, so we could get them in with the ward or the branch at that time, and we played soccer just on the beach, just super fun, absolutely beautiful, and anywhere you can go, you can see the sea. Just never seen clearer water. You look down, and I remember thinking one time. So I actually did a baptism once in the sea in Vlor. Just one time. It was I won't say it was a fluke, but it was a big blessing for me. I was pretty excited. But I remember walking by it to it, and I looked in the water, and I was like, oh, that's like 3 or 4 feet down. Like we could probably do it there. And then the guy I was walking with was the branch president. We were having a good conversation. He was like, man, what are you talking about? That's like 17 feet. And I was like, I can see the rocks. He's like, those rocks are probably 20 feet big. Like you can stand on that one rock and then you fall down. And I looked closer to it and he was right. It was super clear water, just absolutely beautiful. This was one of the cleaner cities, super clean, super beautiful. Everyone was nice, and just loved all my time in Albania. People ask me favorite cities, and I have to talk about my favorite experiences because the cities themselves were all just so much fun. Loved every minute of it.